Coming up in the news, Grand Bahama Island listed as one of the 21 best Caribbean islands to visit in 2021. Also, the police cautioning parents on internet safety. And an international nonprofit organization continuing to make a major impact on Abaco. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Shashina Wolfarkis, and as always, it's so great to have you with us. Topping news, the 59th United States presidential inauguration is set for tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. The public ceremony will mark the commencement of the four-year term of the 46th president of the United States, Joe Biden. 2 weeks ago, violence erupted on Capitol Hill as rioters stormed the government building in protest of the recent election results. While ahead of tomorrow's inauguration, federal law enforcement agencies launched a massive security initiative as they prepare for another possible uprising. Today, we spoke with a Grand Bahamian living in the Washington area, Claudine Evans, who says she lives about a mile from the Capitol, and she shares what the situation is like there just hours ahead of the inauguration.
I live across the street from a grocery store and also a hotel that some of the protesters actually stayed at on the 6th. Right now, today, it's been really quiet. You don't see any activity. The only activity I'm seeing is basically people going in the grocery store and coming out of the grocery store. So on January 2nd, we took a walk and we walked towards the Capitol because we wanted to see how they were preparing for the inauguration, which was a nice day. And there were lots of people actually walking on the mall and around the mall, and everything looked so nice, not knowing that a few days later we would have a big insurrection.
Claudine says because of the increased security around the Capitol, she's not concerned about any further violence on Inauguration Day.
I am fine staying in my apartment. I even got a grocery delivery service, so I don't have to leave if I don't need to. So I don't have a problem with that. And I know being a mile away from the Capitol, I'm still within that radius. So I am cool about doing what is necessary for the safety of myself and staying indoors. I think January 6th happened because those terrorists knew they would not find any resistance. Today, it's a different story. They are not going to try. I don't believe they will try anything because they know that there's major resistance and protection around the area right now. So I feel very safe. So truly would love to see people that were responsible being held responsible. You know, for years, there's been a disconnect between what happens to the African Americans versus Caucasians when it comes to law and order.
Switching gears now, virtual learning has now become the new norm due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some schools on Grand Bahama are still using the hybrid model where students must have access to an electronic device. Well, tonight, police officers are asking parents to remain vigilant as there is danger associated with the smart devices. Italia Hall explains. Devices such as these, along with iPads and cell phones, are now being used for virtual learning since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, while these devices can be helpful, recent reports suggest that they can be harmful as well. Police Inspector Latoya Major Rule is urging all parents to monitor their children while they use the internet as well as social media.
Sometimes we find that parents are so complacent that they allow the kids to just use the devices and not even check to see what they are doing. Oftentimes, you may find persons, older people that is, who will prey on these little children by purporting to be younger kids and in attempts to try and befriend these children to get information and to allow them to send them perhaps nude photos or information about their address, their age, and their family history.
She says parents should put a time limit on their children as to how long they can use their electronic devices and have the password to all of their social media accounts if they have any. And for young people, Major Rule says if you do have social media accounts, you must be very careful.
You should be using it for school or, like I said, gaming. And if someone sends you a friend request, if you do not know what to do, you're encouraged to speak to an older sibling or parent so that that person can be deleted and blocked.
Sergeant Kaz Wallace says if a child is found taking part in an inappropriate act on the internet, it is the parent's responsibility to speak with that child immediately.
Gather as much information as you could. If it dictates that you come into the authorities to inform us of any illegal behavior from an exterior party, inform us. Let us do our jobs. It is important that we get these things early rather than they bloom into something bigger.
And to those who prey on the youth,
You will be dealt with to the fullest extent of the law. And if you're found in possession of any child pornography or anything of that sort, you will be dealt with. That is a criminal offense.
Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Great story, Italia. Well, switching gears, nurses in Abaco have returned to the Marsh Harbor Clinic but are only responding to emergencies. ZNS News has learned that the nurses who have gone public with their laundry list of issues last week are still facing a number of outstanding issues. Reports coming into our newsroom indicate that the nurses are now reporting to the canteen, and the late shift called in last evening due to the fact that there is still no security on the premises. Now, the nurses issued a letter to the Ministry of Health last month outlining several issues, including the lack of bathroom facilities like a flushable toilet. These sources also contend that the nurses have to tote water to flush the urinals to discard waste once it becomes full. Other issues included the lack of security protection since Hurricane Dorian, noting that nurses have been threatened and attacked when patients became irate in a female-dominated environment. Now, the lack of sanitization or proper sanitization or cleaning of the clinic and inadequate lighting in the parking area at night also presented as a concern. We spoke with the Nurses Union President, Amanda Williams, last week, who says that there is no reason why these nurses had to endure these issues for months. We also attempted to reach out to Community Health Administrator for the Department of Health, Charlene Bain, to get an update on the situation, but our calls or messages were not returned up to news time. However, she did report last week that the water situation has been resolved and they are actively continuing efforts to solve the other issues. And also from Abaco tonight, an international nonprofit organization continuing to make a major impact on the island of Abaco. Idea Relief began as an organization that facilitated the evacuation of over 600 people on private vessels from Abaco mainland and the Keys. And now the organization has transitioned to partner with the government to help feed residents on that northern island. Our Megan Shepard has more in this report.
Immediate Disaster and Emergency Assistance IDEA has been on the ground on the island of Abaco since the passing of Hurricane Dorian. The organization facilitated immediate evacuations, provided medical support, search and rescue transport, and supply chain logistical support for the government of the Bahamas, NGOs, and private citizens in the impacted areas. And as of last year, the organization has been partnering with the government to implement a feeding program. Member of Parliament for North Abaco, the Honorable Darren Henfield, is grateful for the assistance.
To see Bahamians there being able to access a good quality level of food in Abaco, this is being run by Idea Relief, which is really conversant on how to distribute food, and we thought this would be the best way to do it, to take it out of the hands of politicians and to put it into the hands of people who are in the business, who know the business, and I had really good reports from the food being distributed. We're also going to be distributing in Murphytown today, and I think sometime tomorrow they do it in Treasure Key, and so we're on a schedule.
Pastor of Friendship Tabernacle, Silbert Mills, volunteers his church as a distribution center.
Our area provides distribution at the church with volunteers every Friday from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. It's a partnership with Grace Baptist Church volunteers, Church of God, Dundastown, and Friendship Tabernacle. Our volunteers with two pastors that are there in our membership sorting the groceries that arrives in bulks from the back of a truck at forklift delivers it on our porch there at the canopy, and they spend an hour or so sorting the bags, putting them into various packages before we open up for the public. Now, this fruiting program will end at the end of March.
Now, despite the imminent end, Pastor Mills says there is still a great need for the program in the community.
Hundreds come in every week, and people have needs. People are still shifting in their homes at night when it rains. I got a call from someone today who needs some plywood and some building materials. We'll do what we can to make sure they get that tomorrow.
But Pastor Mills says the organization's original intent was not to be a feeding program.
They came to provide airlift for those who needed to go to the United States or elsewhere after the storm, and also to provide emergency medical care if it was required. They suddenly realized that there was a need for food, and they morphed into this food feeding program and identified local churches and various establishments to provide for distribution. They're not doing this solo. The government is a part of the funding for this. The government provides $5 for every $20 spent. So they spend $15, the government spends $5 for the purchase of the food supplies that's brought in for delivery every week.
Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
Food drives, back-to-school giveaways, Christmas giveaways, and many more community efforts spearheaded by the Reach Out organization last year. While reflecting on the work of the organization in 2020, President of the youth group says while it was a productive year, it's one that he will not forget. Ramiko Knowles has more.
It's no secret that 2020 has been a challenging year for Grand Bahamians. The economic fallout of Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on Bahamians.
2020 was a year I think I'll never forget.
The Reach Out Youth Organization stood as a beacon of light for thousands of persons in the community who were in need. And despite the pandemic, they were not deterred from giving help.
When COVID-19 first came around, everybody was a bit afraid. So we did our pop your back trunk, put the grocery items in your car.
In addition to helping thousands of persons in need, the Reach Out president also came across those who could not help themselves. He recalls one of his most memorable moments during that year.
When we went into West End, there was an old lady there. We went to drop off some grocery items to her, and she couldn't, because of COVID-19, we wanted to rest the grocery at the door. And she told me that she's blind, and we had to go inside her home and drop grocery to her.
Now, what is most interesting about 2020, Sade says, although it was a time that persons were in need, it was also a time that members of the community pulled together to help their fellow Bahamians.
For the first time since I've been started this organization, the Grand Bahama community step in. They were dropping off groceries, chicken here at the community.
He says the business community also stepped up in a major way.
Corporate Grand Bahama, I think that they were there for us, and I think that they saw what we were doing. And after that, my phone started to ring, and that's why I was able to go to the length and breadth of Grand Bahama.
The Reach Out president says it has long been a dream of his to have his organization ranked among some of the top nonprofits, adding that in 2021, with God's help, they're looking to do even more.
We have a person who contacted me in December, They want to give about $30,000 worth of grocery items to the wider community of Grand Bahama. So we have that in our works. That's going to be the first thing on the drawing board.
Ramiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.